My ex-husband forced me to have an abortion and then left me for someone else. I always believed love was supposed to feel safe, like home, but sometimes it turns out to be the exact opposite. I'm 24 now, but looking back at everything I've been through, I don't even recognize the girl I was. I used to think I had it all figured out until life proved me wrong. I met my ex-husband when I was just 18. He was 20 and I thought he was everything I ever wanted. We got married that same year, barely knowing what real life had in store for us. Fast forward a few months and I found myself pregnant. I was excited and terrified at the same time, but instead of sharing that joy, my ex was distant. I wasn't someone who posted much on social media, but he was, and I always wondered why he never shared anything about me or our growing family. When I brought it up, it turned into a fight, like everything did. Eventually, he posted something about us. But here's the kicker. He hid the post from 500 people and only showed it to 2 people I knew. Yeah, that hurt. Our marriage wasn't what I had imagined. I wanted a proposal, a wedding, something meaningful. Instead, he bought me a ring, handed it to me, and convinced me a courthouse wedding was just fine. No celebration, no family, no moment to remember. But I went along with it. I kept making excuses for him. I guess I was just too young, too in love, and too scared to rock the boat. He lied constantly. I'd ask to go to family events, and he'd tell me, no women will be there. It's not worth it. Because of my social anxiety, I agreed. But then I'd see videos of the event on his Instagram, and surprise, there were plenty of women and children. When I confronted him, his excuse was, I didn't think you'd want to come. Every time, it was a lie. Then came the hardest part. I've always wanted a big family, 2 or 3 kids like the one I grew up in. We talked about it often, but he always pushed it off. Then, one day I found out I was pregnant again, and I was thrilled, even though it wasn't planned. But when I told him, he called me every horrible name in the book. He said I was stupid, told me we couldn't afford another child, even though he was wealthy, and said that if I didn't get an abortion, he wouldn't be involved in raising the baby. I felt trapped. I didn't want to lose him, so I agreed to the abortion. It was the worst day of my life, and I've hated myself for it ever since. It only got worse. He made degrading comments about my body, blamed me for gaining weight after having our first child, and even insulted my private parts. It was like I could never be enough for him, no matter what I did. On our anniversary, I poured my heart out to him, telling him all the things I loved about him. When I asked him what he loved about me, his response, "You cook and clean for me." That was it. After 6 years of marriage, that's all I meant to him. I finally asked the question that had been haunting me for years. If I were from the same background as you, would you post about me? Would you be proud to call me your wife? He dodged it at first, but when I pushed, he said yes. He admitted that he never wanted to spend his life with me, that he wanted kids, just not with me. He stayed only because he didn't want to hurt my feelings. 2 days later, I filed for divorce. A month after we separated, he already had a new partner. He proudly introduced her to his family, the same family he had kept me hidden from for 6 years. He talked about how excited he was to marry her and have kids with her, the same man who had forced me into an abortion because I wasn't good enough. It hurts. It hurts every single day to think about how easily he's moved on and given her everything I spent years begging for. What's even more painful is hearing him talk about having children with her, after he belittled me for wanting the same thing. I spent 6 years of my life trying to be the wife he wanted, only to watch him be that man for someone else, so effortlessly. I stayed so long because I was young and codependent, and I didn't want to disappoint my family. I was the first person in my family to get married, and the pressure to make it work was overwhelming. But now, I'm starting over. And while some days are harder than others, I know I made the right choice. It was the best decision I ever made.